The fire crackled in the clearing, sending flickering shadows dancing against the surrounding trees. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and burning wood. Logan sat on a fallen log, his fingers wrapped around a beer can, condensation dripping onto his jeans. Across from him, his best friend Damon stretched out in his camping chair, boots propped up on a rock, his usual cocky smirk in place. Logan exhaled, glancing at his phone. No new messages. Not from Eric, his boyfriend of nearly 4 years. He'd stopped expecting them at this point. Damon, sharp-eyed as ever, caught the look. Still nothing? Logan shook his head, forcing a smile. Busy with work, I guess. Damon snorted, taking a slow sip of his drink. Always is, huh? Logan didn't answer. The truth was Eric's work commitments had slowly become an excuse, a shield he wielded against real connection. The late nights at the office, the canceled plans, the constant distance. Logan had tried to ignore it, to reason that relationships naturally settled into routines. But routines shouldn't feel this lonely. Man, Damon sighed, stretching his arms behind his head. I don't get it. You're out here, camping under the stars, drinking with your best friend, he grinned. And you're still thinking about someone who didn't even bother to come? Logan's jaw tensed. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. Damon's tone softened. When was the last time he looked at you the way you deserve? Really looked? Logan hated how easily Damon could see through him. He wanted to argue, but the words refused to come. Before the silence could settle too thick, a gust of wind rattled through the trees, shaking the fabric of their tents. Damon's tent let out a sharp rip, the pole buckling inward. Shit! Damon sprang to his feet, eyes widening as his tent collapsed like a house of cards. Laughter erupted from the others sitting around the fire. Mostly people they barely knew, a mix of co-workers and mutual friends from years past. Logan stood, tossing his beer aside as Damon yanked uselessly at the broken structure. Damn it, Damon muttered. Guess I'm sleeping under the stars tonight. Like hell you are, Logan said, already unzipping his own tent. There's room. Damon hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't wanna. Shut up and get in before it gets colder. Logan didn't let him argue, disappearing inside. The tent was barely big enough for one, let alone 2 grown men, but they made it work. Damon crawled in after him, shifting to lie on his back, while Logan turned on his side, facing away. For a few moments, silence stretched between them, broken only by the muffled sounds of laughter outside and the distant hoot of an owl. Logan focused on the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing, the warmth of the sleeping bag against his skin. Then Damon spoke, his voice lower now, more serious. Logan. Yeah, you know you deserve more than this, right? Logan squeezed his eyes shut. Damon wasn't talking about the tent. He wasn't talking about the trip. He was talking about Eric. And the worst part? Logan knew he was right. Logan woke up to warmth. A solid, steady heat pressed against his back, radiating to the thin fabric of his shirt. His brain, sluggish with sleep, took a moment to process the sensation before realization struck. At some point during the night, they must have shifted, because now Logan was tucked against Damon's chest, his breath hot against the back of Logan's neck. And worse, Damon's arm was draped loosely around his waist. Logan's pulse kicked up. He should move. Now. But he didn't. Instead, he focused on the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of Damon's breathing, the warmth of his body, the way his fingers had unconsciously curled against Logan's stomach. It had been a long time since Logan had felt held like this, safe, wanted, seen. He let his eyes drift shut again, just for a second. Then Damon stirred. The shift was slow, his breath catching, his fingers twitching. Then suddenly, he pulled back like he'd touched fire. The space where he had been was instantly cold. Shit, Damon muttered under his breath, running a hand over his face. Sorry, didn't mean to. Logan sat up, shaking his head quickly. No, it's... His throat felt tight. It's fine. It's just tight quarters, right? Damon didn't answer. He was staring at him, eyes darker than usual, unreadable in the dim light filtering through the tent fabric. Logan swallowed hard, pretending not to notice. pretending this wasn't affecting him. He reached for his phone, needing a distraction. One unread text from Eric. That was it. No, I miss you. No, wish I was there. Not even a damn good morning. Logan stared at the message, waiting for something, anything, to stir inside him. Anger, sadness, longing. But there was nothing, just the empty realization that this was normal now. Damon sighed beside him. He texted? Logan nodded, shoving the phone back into his bag. Yeah. Damon didn't press, but the tension sat between them, thick and unspoken. The day passed in a blur of hiking and small talk with the others, but Logan couldn't shake the feeling that something between him and Damon had shifted. Every time he caught Damon watching him, he felt it, that awareness, like a live wire crackling between them. By the time night fell, the air had turned sharp with the promise of rain. The fire burned lower, and the group slowly dwindled until only Logan and Damon remained, sitting in comfortable silence. Damon tossed a rock into the embers, watching the sparks fly. You ever think about leaving? Logan blinked, caught off guard. Leaving? Damon's gaze met his. Him. The question landed like a blow. Not because Logan hadn't thought about it. He had. Too many times. But hearing someone else say out loud, it made it real. I don't know, Logan admitted. It's not that simple. Damon let out a low laugh, shaking his head. It is, though. You either stay and keep feeling like this, or you leave and find something better. Logan exhaled, rubbing his hands over his face. And what if there isn't anything better? Damon's voice dropped, low and rough. There is... The weight of those two words settled in Logan's chest like a stone. He looked at Damon. Really looked at him. At the way the firelight flickered against his skin, the way his lips parted slightly, like he wanted to say something else but thought better of it. And then, in a single moment, the space between them disappeared. Logan wasn't sure who moved first. Maybe it was both of them. But suddenly, Damon was close, too close, his knee brushing Logan's, his fingers ghosting over his wrist. Logan's breath hitched. Damon tilted his head slightly, gaze flickering down to Logan's lips before meeting his eyes again. He didn't move, didn't push, just waited. Logan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. This was the moment where he made a choice. Or lean in. And God help him, he wanted to lean in. The rain started slowly. A soft patter against the tent, barely noticeable over crackling fire. But within minutes, it had escalated into a full storm. Thunder rumbling in the distance, fat droplets drumming against the fabric in relentless rhythm. The other campers scrambled into their tents, laughter and curses fading as they zipped themselves away. But Logan and Damon remained by the fire, the space between them feeling dangerously thin. Neither of them spoke. They didn't have to. Logan's pulse was erratic, his skin flushed, not from the fire's warmth, but from Damon, from the way his fingers had brushed against Logan's wrist just moments before, from the way he was looking at him now, like he already knew the choice Logan was about to make. A gust of wind sent a spray of rain their way, and Logan shivered. Damon exhaled sharply. We should get inside. He wasn't talking about the weather. The tension followed them into the tent, thick and suffocating. The fabric trembled under the force of the storm, but Logan barely heard it. He was too focused on Damon, on the way his jaw was set, his fingers flexing like he was trying to hold himself back. Logan should say something, anything, to break whatever this was before it swallowed him whole. But then Damon took a step forward, slow, deliberate, giving Logan every chance to back away. He didn't. Damon reached up, fingers brushing along Logan's jawline. Just a whisper contact, but it destroyed him. Tell me to stop, Damon murmured, voice barely audible over the rain. Logan parted his lips, but nothing came out. He couldn't say it, didn't want to say it, and that was all Damon needed. The kiss wasn't tentative. It wasn't hesitant or questioning. It was a breaking point. Logan gasped as Damon's lips crashed against his, hands gripping his face with a kind of desperation that made Logan's knees weak, like he'd been waiting for this, wanting this. The world outside ceased to exist. The storm, the guilt, Eric, none of it mattered. The only thing real was Damon's hands on him, the heat of his mouth, the way his body pressed against Logan's like he couldn't stand even an inch of distance between them. Logan groaned as Damon's hand slid under his shirt, fingertips tracing along his spine, sending shivers down his back. He should stop. He should pull away before this went too far, before it became something he could never take back. But when Damon broke the kiss to look at him, breathing heavy, pupils blown wide, Logan knew it was already too late. "I need you to say it," Damon whispered. Logan swallowed, voice hoarse when he finally spoke. "I don't want you to stop." And just like that, the last of his restraint shattered. Damon kissed him again, deeper this time, pushing him back until Logan's knees hit the sleeping bags. They tumbled down together, hands greedy, mouths urgent. Logan's breath hitched as Damon's fingers brushed over the waistband of his jeans, hesitating, waiting for permission. Logan gave it to him. What followed was nothing like what he had with Eric. There was no routine, no quiet disinterest. This was raw, messy, desperate, a hunger that had been simmering for far too long, finally unleashed. For the first time in years, Logan felt wanted, and for the first time ever, he let himself have it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The storm had passed by the time Logan woke. The air inside the tent was thick with warmth, his body tangled with Damon's beneath the sleeping bag. Their legs were still intertwined, Damon's arms slung possessively over his waist. For a moment, Logan let himself exist in it, but then reality came crashing in. His chest tightened. He reached blindly for his phone, squinting at the screen. 3 missed calls. 1 message. Logan's stomach turned. He should feel guilty. But when he turned his head slightly and saw Damon still fast asleep beside him, he didn't, and that terrified him more than anything. Logan stared at his phone, the screen's soft glow illuminating the darkness of the tent. 3 missed calls. 1 message. His thumb hovered over the screen. He could call back right now, pretend nothing had happened, pretend last night had been a mistake. Just a slip, a moment of weakness brought on by the storm and too much proximity. Except it wasn't. Logan shifted slightly, feeling the heat of Damon's body still press against his side, the slow, steady rise and fall of his chest, the way his fingers, loose but present, rested against Logan's hip, like even in sleep, he wasn't willing to let go. Guilt should have hit him like a freight train, but all he felt was clarity. He let his phone drop onto his sleeping bag and exhaled, staring up at the fabric of the tent. What the hell was he supposed to do now? The answer came in the form of Damon's voice, rough with sleep. "You okay?" Logan swallowed hard, keeping his gaze fixed upward. Eric called. Damon was silent for a beat. Then, with deliberate slowness, he pulled his arm back, putting space between them. Logan felt the loss immediately. "You gonna call him back?" Damon's voice was unreadable. Logan turned his head, finally meeting his gaze. Damon's expression was guarded, his usual smirk nowhere in sight. He was waiting for Logan to say something, do something, and Logan had no idea what to say. He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know." Damon's jaw flexed. "You don't know," he repeated, voice laced with something sharp. Logan sat up, rubbing at his face. "It's not that simple." Damon let out a low, humorless laugh. "It is, though. You either keep lying to yourself, or you admit what we both already know." Logan's throat tightened. "And what's that?" Damon sat up, too, leaning in just enough that Logan had nowhere to look but at him. "That you haven't been in love with him for a long time," Damon said softly. "That you want out, but you're too scared to do it." Logan's breath hitched. Damon had always been blunt, always said things without dressing them up. But hearing those words spoken out loud, with such certainty, stripped him bare. "You don't know that," Logan muttered, but the words felt weak even as he said them. Damon arched a brow. "Don't I?" He shook his head, exhaling. "Logan, I don't regret last night. Not for a damn second. But if you're about to pretend it didn't mean anything—" "I'm not," Logan interrupted, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Damon stilled. "Then what are you doing?" And that was the question, wasn't it? What was he doing? Clinging to something that had been broken for years, just because it was familiar? Pretending that Eric still saw him, still wanted him, when the truth was, Logan had just spent a whole weekend waiting for a text that never came, and when it finally did, it meant nothing. Logan took a breath, his heart pounding. "I don't know what happens next," he admitted. "I don't know how to fix this." Damon's gaze softened, the sharp edges of his frustration dulling. "Maybe you don't fix it. Maybe you just let it go." The words settled over him, heavy and undeniable. Let it go. Could he? Logan exhaled, his pulse hammering. And for the first time in a long time, he thought maybe he could,